Rachel Shabi is an Al Jazeera journalist who's written extensively on the Israel-Palestinian conflict. She's also author of Not the Enemy, Israel's Jews from Arab Lands. Great to have you here with us. So we've been hearing from Hamas. We've also been hearing from the economy minister, far-right minister in Netanyahu's cabinet. What do you make of their rhetoric?
Well, they've both dug in their heels, as they would. I mean, what happens every time we see an escalation of this sort between Israel and the Palestinians is that the logic of violence creates its own momentum. Both sides now have their back against the wall. Both sides have to show some kind of victory, or rather a lack of, throwing their hands in the air and waving a white flag. Hamas certainly is weak in the Gaza Strip. It was weakened by the fact that it has less allies than it did the last time in 2012 that we saw this kind of escalation. So it certainly sees that it can strengthen its own political base by portraying some kind of victory in this attack.
So do you think it's those voices that are going to lead this conflict, or is it the more moderate, for want of a better word, voices of Abbas and Netanyahu, at least in this instance, that is going to dictate where we move from here? Yeah,
Netanyahu's not showing signs of wanting to rapidly escalate this conflict, and more significantly, neither is the Israeli army. I mean, they have shown a reluctance for certainly a ground attack because the costs would be too high, not just in terms of lost lives, but in terms of lost credibility in the face of the international community. And also the thing is that none of this ultimately is going to achieve this supposed goal of eliminating Hamas. It hasn't in the past, it won't now, because this kind of approach is not the political approach that is going to bring a just end to this conflict.
And how much support does the conflict have within the two populations, within both the Israelis and the Palestinians, when you're looking at the rocket fire that comes from Gaza into Israel?
Well, this is where you get into the tit-for-tat of who started what. I mean, once Israel launches a declared military offensive, as it has in the last few days, then obviously Palestinians are going to respond to that in kind. And we saw what happened in Israel when the missing Israeli teenagers who went missing in the West Bank were found dead. We saw that there was a lot of anger around that, and actually quite a lot of media manipulation within Israel, creating this kind of climate where people, Israeli officials, were actually calling for revenge, which almost inevitably created a momentum amongst the population that wanted to see some kind of attack on Palestinians.
Rachel Shabi, great to have you in the studio. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.